Have you been getting into Syngoniums recently, or are they a plant that you're looking to get into? Commonly known as the arrowhead vine, stick with me, and in this video I'm going to share with you some of my top favourite Syngoniums. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So today I want to dive into the world of Syngoniums. I know a lot of people don't necessarily talk about them much these days. There was a bit of a heyday for Syngoniums where everybody was getting every Syngonium that was out there. I think that's kind of slowed down a bit now. However, I will say, and it's interesting because in my opinion they are a bit of the unsung hero of the houseplant world, really, because generally speaking, Syngoniums, by and large, and I know this is a sweeping generalization, it might not apply to everybody, but from a lot of things that I have seen online and from people that I've spoken to online, they tend to be relatively kind of easygoing and forgiving for most people and for most types of plant parenting. So it might be the reason why that many people don't talk about them, because there's no drama and all these things, but regardless of all that, I think they do deserve a bit of a spotlight, which is what I'm going to do today. So without further ado, let's dive into some of my favourites. So some of the plants I've still got in my care, some of them I don't anymore, and I'll explain why, but let's start with one that I do have in my care, and this is one that a lot of people are looking for up until very recently. This is the Syngonium Strawberry Ice, or Ice Cream Strawberry, I can't remember what it's called. I will add the name at the top, basically. But this is one that I picked up from a local garden centre, and it was one that I found that it wasn't that expensive, and everybody was talking about it. There's a lot of people that have a lot of opinions about it looking a bit muddy. Do I agree? Yes, to a certain point I do agree. This can look a bit kind of on the muddy side. You can see there's a tiny bit of variegation there, and these were the leaves that were originally bought with the plant. There was a variegated leaf that was coming out after these, but I managed to snap it because obviously. But everything else since then has been kind of a bit of a ruddy colour. But I went into this knowing this about this plant, and I'm okay with that. To be fair, I didn't think I was going to enjoy growing this as much as I have done, and it's been okay. Has it been any easier and harder than other Syngoniums? With this one, it can be a bit slow, I find. However, this is in a place which doesn't get an awful light for me, and it's under a kind of a consistent grow light. So whether or not it needs a bit more of a light from the grow light, I've got other things around, so I'm not going to be changing the grow light anytime soon, but this is one that's interesting. As long as you know what it will predominantly look like going into it, that's fine. If you do have this and you've struggled to keep the variegation on it, or if you know how to keep the variegation on it, other than just chop it back to the most recent variegated leaf, do let me know, because I think that's probably what this plant needs, is a bit of a chop back to the most recent variegated leaf. But it's just a lot of effort right now, and I'm happy with what it is, basically. So yes, first Syngonium. And let's continue with Syngonium names that this one I can never pronounce, so I am not even going to attempt it. I am going to add it at the very top there. This was one that was quite popular a few years back, and everybody was trying to get their hands on it. And it's because, this is probably a bad example, this is a better example of its leaf structure, basically. So it's much more narrow than most Syngoniums, and you tend to get like these types of leaves rather than the kind of more traditional Syngonium leaf, which is kind of more this size. Can it go to this size leaf? Yes, it can. And this is one that, again, I can see where the repetition is going to happen on this video. Is this easy to grow? Yes. How am I growing this one? So the other one that I just showed you, I forgot to mention, is growing in a chunky aroid mix. This one is growing in my semi-hydro mix. So it's doing quite well. Has it been fussy? This one, not specifically. I might show you what the growth pattern is like, just so you can see. It's very dense. Would this appreciate potentially a moss pole? Yes. However, I have found times, and some of these leaves is because it was leaning on something. I have found with this plant, if I give it some support, would it grow a bit faster? Possibly. but at the same time, you start getting bigger leaves, which is kind of defeats the purpose of the narrow leaves of this plant. And it's quite nice now because we're coming into the season where all my Syngoniums, to be fair, all of my houseplants are activating because it's spring. So yes, this is one that I would highly recommend. This does bring me an awful lot of joy, more so than I thought I was going to get from this. I did not spend an awful lot of money on this. I can't remember exactly what I spent on this. If I do find it on my plant care app, I will add it at the top. I am getting better every time I get a plant and bring it into my collection now because I added it into my plant care app. From a certain point onwards now, I try to always add the retail price of when I got it, and obviously it keeps a record of the date that I got it, so I can be a bit more specific in these types of videos and just go, I bought it then and I bought it for this much. But very cool plant nonetheless, and I'm quite glad I picked it up for a relatively decent price. I don't think I got this in the craze where everybody was looking for this one specifically, but I did manage to get it like maybe 6 months later at a much more affordable price at a local garden centre, which was fantastic. As I keep mentioning, that one garden centre around me is great. Don't know who their buyer is, but they need to give that person a raise. But yes, stunning, stunning kind of narrow leaf. It's also got, I don't know how to describe this, the leaf edges have got almost like a bit of a serration, so it's almost like a bit of a serrated knife. Would it cut you? No, but it's quite interesting because not a lot of Syngoniums have got that. The next one that I want to show you is one that I am very, very happy about because this was a trade from the London Plant Swap, and this was actually a trade with Lisa, which is one of the organisers of the London Plant Swaps, or not just London Plant Swaps, they are national at this point. So I think I'll kind of add their website at the top in case you haven't heard of them and you're based in the UK and you want to go, definitely highly recommend. But this started for me and it was a teeny tiny little, like it was a one node with a tiny root and a tiny leaf, and I'm just like, you know what, I'll give it a try. I wasn't specifically looking for this, and I think, yes, so this is the Syngonium Milk confetti, and I did not think I was going to love this plant as much as I have done, but the kind of leaf is a very, very pale kind of green. It's almost like a whitish color or like a creamish color, and then you get these splotches of the pink, which obviously kind of makes sense as to why the name is what it is, basically. But this one was leaning, and I'll give you an indication. So this is growing in my semi-hydro mix, basically, and it is just the coarse semi-hydro mix from Soil Ninja. Like people that have been here for a while will know I'm repeating myself, but you know. But this is one that was just kind of leaning, and I've only just recently gave it a bit of a janky support stick whilst I try not to knock down the other Syngonium that I'm about to talk to. You know that moment where you think you've knocked down a plant? Like, but it's fine, you haven't, it's okay, and then you can be all smug about it. That moment just happened. But this one is one that's really, really cool, actually. Has it been the fastest grower for me? No. But having said that, it is one singular stem. I'm probably going to be due a bit of a chop and a propagate just to get a bit of a fuller, bushier plant. And it's more of the traditional Syngonium leaf shape. But it's just been so easy going. And I mean, interest. Look at the interest in that leaf. Oh, stunning, 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 stunning. So very, very cool. This is definitely one for the people that like the pinky kind of hues. And I will say the Strawberry Ice, the first one, and then there's this one, and then I think there's the neon one, which I had ages ago. Well, I wasn't going to feature that, but honourable mention to the Syngonium Neon. I think it's Neon. And I'll see if I can find a picture and add it here. But for me, this is personal opinion, the best pinkish coloured Syngonium out there, because it gives you a decent colour of pink. So it's not particularly muddy. It's not kind of in your face like the neon one. Is it kind of bubblegum pink? No. Is it kind of Barbie-ish pink and a lighter pink? Yes. So choose your poison, so to speak, with the pink Syngoniums. But yes, very, very cool, and definitely deserves a place on this list. Now this is one that I don't think a lot of people will talk about, and this is the Syngonium Maria, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But very cool, and I'll show you one of its newest leaves, So you can see what it comes in as and then what it hardens off to. So it's a tricky one, and I get why some people might not. And I mean, each leaf is so unique. I mean, look at that leaf right there. It's got that red midrib, and then it kind of opens up to like a greeny color. But if you want a Syngonium that will change potentially with each leaf, and it will be kind of the same but kind of different, if that makes sense. So the previous one that we were looking at, it kind of looks like splotches of pink variegation, so it kind of reminiscent of variegation. This is just a plant that I think, for me, and I'm trying to find the best way to describe it, it just expresses its uniqueness differently each time, if that makes sense. So it's not a variegation, it's just a riff on what it looks like normally, basically. So very, very cool. Hugely kind of comfortable in growing. Do I need to get rid of some of these crispy leaves? Yes. I love doing these videos because these are the only times that I can actually be bothered or remember or just kind of in that headspace to take off some dried leaves. So thank you. But yes, this is a very, very cool plant. It's also one of the plants, and hopefully that's going to pick up, the petioles are kind of a reddish color as well. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is a Syngonium that, at least here in the UK, is relatively easy to find. This is one that you can get more frequently in more kind of garden centers and plant stores, or at least that was the case. I'm trying to think if I've seen it recently. No, I have done. I think this is one that you do see relatively frequently, basically. So if you're wanting something with a bit of interest, this is darker. This is giving going towards those muddier kind of colors that you get on every leaf of the strawberry ice, basically, but without that level of pink kind of splotchiness. And I am wondering whether or not this is the base plant or it's part of the parentage of that hybrid, I would imagine. I don't think, or it might have been a sport of this, I don't entirely know, but they can have very similar colouring in the foliage. The foliage is different, so if it is a hybrid, the strawberry ice, there might be some of this in its parentage. It might not be one of the two parents, but it might be further back. It might be one of the grandparents, does that make sense? But yes, very, very cool Syngonium with kind of darker shades, actually. The next one I no longer have in my collection, but hopefully I will find an image of my plant and add it here. If not, I will find an image and add it here. So it's the Syngonium Rhode, and I think it could be the Erythrophyllum. I might be wrong. I'll add it at the top, basically. Yes, I think that the more kind of commercial name is Rhode, basically. So very dark foliage on the top, but red underside. Oh, and I cannot describe to you how cool this plant is. Now, you might be questioning as to why I don't have it to show it if it was such a cool Syngonium. And it was entirely user error. So I had grown it in semi-hydro and it was doing relatively okay. It was in my office in a place where it didn't get an awful lot of light. So it was only a matter of time before I gave it root rot. To be fair to the plant, it went for nearly 2 years before I managed to do that, so it did okay. But growing it in a media, I think, because I got that originally in a soil media, I think it was a lot happier in the soil media than it was in the semi-hydro. It's interesting, because for me, anytime I see a plant that's got red undersides and the darker foliage on top, to me, it's kind of suggests that it's originally from somewhere that gets very low light levels, basically. So think of what we're used to in terms of a lot of the prayer plants. They have those red undersides. They tend to be kind of in the slightly shadier bits of kind of the jungles. So with this one, I was trying to replicate that, but I do think I got it wrong because I was giving it bright and direct light. That was a bit too much for it. It was bleaching it out too quickly. I then gave it low light, and that was an issue. So this is one of the true plants that, at least in my experience, I think prefers medium light. And there are so many people doing videos and they just have bright and direct light and everybody's just like, I don't know what that means. People can kind of grasp low light, or I think a lot of people think they can. Medium light, nobody talks about medium light, everybody's just like, medium light, so what is medium light? I'm just like, I don't know either, basically. It's like, find another plant that likes medium light, see how much light it gets there and give another plant that likes medium light the same light levels. Best tip that I can give you, that one. But yes, the Rhode Truly beautiful and different. And this is the thing, I like this one because it is very different in terms of its morphology from a lot of other Syngoniums. The next one I do have, but it's only a propagation, and this is the Syngonium Red Spot Tricolor, I think it is. So I'll bring it in so you might be able to see. It's probably going to get blown out from the bleaching that has happened on this leaf, so it's a much greener back with those kind of pinky splotches on it. It's interesting because this is called Red Spot, and I'm just like, it ain't really red, and no version of this that I've ever seen is red. It's kind of a salmon pink from what I can kind of see on the plant. But, and you might be questioning, if you've not seen some of my most recent videos, why these are all propagations. So I had bought it, similar garden centre. See, that garden centre is a bit of an enabler for me. I end up spending way too much money there. Shout out to anybody, like, let us know in the comments if you've got that one garden centre or one plant store where you spend an obscene amount of money in, and at this point you're just sitting there going, when am I getting my loyalty card? I want my stamps so I can get a free plant at the end. Top tip for any plant shops that are not doing that. That might be a good one, actually. Especially for all of us, like, plants enthusiasts, yes? But this is one that really struggled at some point. The soil media, I didn't change it because I'm just like, you know what, I wasn't that bothered with it. It was a rescue plant, so it was in the discount area as well, so I ended up getting it for like under £10, and I remember a point where this specific plant, which I never quite got, I would have never paid that kind of money for it, because I'm just like, it's a green plant with a bit of pink splotching on it. I mean, it's nice, it's not, I don't need to spend that kind of money for it, basically. But this is one that did drop, I think I got it for like a £5, like 5 Great British pounds. So it was great, it did okay, but I didn't change the soil media because I wasn't that bothered about that plant at that point. And eventually what happened was, there's like, it got quite long and it had like janky support sticks on, but pretty much both of the growing points had eventually rotted out. But before that happened, I took multiple cuttings and propagated them. And I will say I have actually enjoyed growing this plant, more so than I thought I was going to. Would I have paid any more money than I actually did for this one? No. But at the moment it is growing in my clear pot with the kind of soldered in kind of air holes with my aroid soil mix, and it's doing really well. It's loving life. I'm letting this really dry down to kind of a relatively kind of dry level before I water it, having seen what had happened to the previous plant. And there are multiple cuttings in here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cuttings. So this eventually will become a bushy plant, but I will say this is not one of the fastest growing Syngoniums I have ever owned. I will give an honourable mention to my mum's Syngonium, and I know it's not my plant, but I will add it into this list. I'm not taking credit for it, but I will add it into this list. And hopefully I'll find a clip and put it somewhere around here, basically. But her Syngoniums are beautiful. I think it's the butterfly. It's one of the most, or the Pixie, I can't remember now, and I'll see if I can find it and put it on here. Somebody did mention it in the video that I did when I went back home and visited my mum's houseplant collection. If you haven't seen that video, again, I will link it at the top. But yeah, I mean, that plant, huge, 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 huge. And she does the thing that a lot of people will do, is chop and propagate it back into this, literally chop it, shove it back in the soil, chop it, shove it back in the soil. There's a reason why this is possibly one of the easiest Syngoniums to find on the market, because I would imagine it's relatively robust, which is, it always surprised me. I've never owned it, but it always surprised me because it's got quite light leaves, basically. So I'm just like, how is this the easy Syngonium? But apparently it is. It is one of those things that does grow, apparently for a lot of people, really, really easily and really, really well and really, really fast. Now the next one I do have, it's upstairs, but it's in a tricky position for me to bring down. I did have it in this space, but I will do a little photo or a video to add it here, and it's my Syngonium Wendlandii. Scrap that, Syngonium Wendlandii. I've got Anthurium Wendlandii, oh, I butchered that one. The one with the corkscrew inflorescence on the mind, and I know all of you are so lovely for always shouting that out and saying they've got it, and I'm just like, I do know and I want to get it, but at the moment I'm seeing it coming on the market a lot more, and thanks for the shout outs, but it's quite young, and I've been a bit underwhelmed with some strappy leaf Anthuriums that are exceptionally young. They do take a while to get mature enough to get them where you need to get them. So I will be getting it, but I'm trying to find a bit more of a decent specimen that is at an okay price for me to get. So it will happen. But the Wendlandii Syngonium Very cool, and again, different from a lot of the other Syngoniums in the sense that the actual leaves themselves are a very dark green. They've got a silver band, actual silver, so blister variegation, think there. And it is fuzzy, so it's kind of that velvety feel. Now, before you go running and screaming, because it's got a velvety leaf and it could be difficult and challenging to grow, so far, fine. And I will say, I did have it in here because I find that generally a lot of the velvety type plants, generally the tropical ones at least, prefer higher levels of humidity. Part of the reason why a lot of the times they've got the velvety leaves. But this one has moved, it's in the bathroom upstairs. So it does get some humidity from the shower room and things like that, but it doesn't need conservatory level high humidity all day long. It's completely fine in the bathroom and it's loving life. And I have to say, truthfully, one of my easiest Syngoniums as well. So that should tell you something. And I'm so super glad I got it. I think there's another one, and I can never remember its name, that looks very similar. That's another Syngonium. I can't talk on that one, but the one that I've got, the wendlandii, super cool, super easy, and kind of okay growing. I haven't given it any support other than just kind of like regular kind of janky support sticks, but it seems to not be difficult in any way really. And for any of you that have been on my channel recently and watched any of my recent videos, you probably know which one I've left for last. By far, I never thought, and this is hand to heart? Yes, that is the side of my heart, basically. I never thought that I was going to love a Syngonium, or it was going to excite me as much as this Syngonium has. And I'll show you the propagation because the mother plant is just in too much of a difficult position to pick up right now. But the Syngonium chiapense. And I know some of you might be sitting there going, but that looks a really dull comparison to some of the other like plants you've just shown. It's because you can't feel through the video. Oh, if you do ever find this in a store, I highly encourage you, as long as the plant kind of shop owners are okay, go and stroke the leaves, basically. That's sounding a bit weird and odd, but like go and touch the leaves. I have never found another houseplant that is like this. It actually feels like rubber. Oh, like you get a lot of the like houseplants that have got kind of, you know, the leathery leaves, and that kind of makes sense to a lot of us, but there's not an awful lot of houseplants out there that have got rubbery feeling leaves. Oh, such a like amazing plant. So far, by far, my fastest growing Syngonium. By far, by far. I've also given it a moss pole, so that might be helping it. By far. However, one of my slowest growing Syngoniums. Not slowest growing, slowest propagating, at least in water propagation. It's taken a while and it's still not quite there. So, no. But yeah, it is a plant that I have truly, truly fallen in love with, and I am so glad that I got it. Super, super kind of easy to grow. This has grown in a household condition, it's grown in here. I've grown it in semi-hydro, not in semi-hydro, I've grown it in a soil mix for this one. Soil mix. I'm looking at the plant behind going, it's soil mix, right? Soil mix, and I will be planting this in semi-hydro. I do not see it skipping a beat, but the reason why I also wanted to give this a moss pole is because I wanted to see the leaves start to size up. And some of you might be sitting there going, it's another plant that looks a bit like a heart leaf, like philodendron. Do we need any more of those? I hear you. But look at, this doesn't happen on all the leaves, but occasionally you get these markings on the leaf which are just stunning. I'll see if I can give you the back so you might be able to see it a bit clearer without the light blowing it out. But oh, just stunning, basically. So yes, the Syngonium chiapense, and there is a variegated version of this, so I do potentially want to get that. It is still an obscene amount of money for me for a Syngonium. So I am waiting for that price to come down, and if I can find a decent one, I will be getting a Syngonium variegated as well. And I know I said that was going to be the last one, but I think I can probably already hear the like shouting that's going to happen in the comments down below if I don't mention the obvious Syngonium, and I really cannot move this one but I will put a picture or a video here to show you that everybody wanted and eventually a lot of people got, which is the Syngonium podophyllum Albo variegated. There was also an Aurea, so a yellow variegated Syngonium. I have only ever had the Albo. Oh, that might be a close second in terms of speed to my chiapense. That should tell you something. Anybody that has owned that plant but doesn't have the chiapense, also if you've had a different experience and you've got both of those, let me know in the comments down below. But in my experience, the chiapense it grows like the clappers. The Albo Syngonium grows almost as fast, but not quite as fast. There's also the issue of reversion on the leaves. Do you care? I tended to cut the green bits and just propagate an all green Syngonium, and that's fine because those are nice, easy gifts. Here you go! You like a houseplant for you. Syngonium Albo reverted for you, Syngonium Albo reverted for you. Everybody gets a Syngonium Albo reverted, basically. It's one of those plants. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of got granddaddy rights, I think, at this point, because that was the Syngonium at least a few years back, and possibly still is one of the Syngoniums that a lot of people, when they go for the slightly harder Syngoniums to find, they will gravitate towards that a bit more. I also, again, honourable mention, I'm not going to go into too much detail of this one, I did have the Syngonium Mojito, or the Syngonium Mottled, it's also called sometimes in the market. I was less taken on that. That was giving real Philodendron Parisa Verde vibes, and I was just like, I tried growing you, I'm not bothered, I'm out of love, I'm just out of love for that plant. So it died a death, possibly unintentionally, possibly intentionally, I don't know. But yeah, the Syngonium Albo I've still got, and I will have for many years to come. I do still love that plant. Now coming into final thoughts. I know everybody was just like, we saw an awful lot of Syngoniums. Is there any ones that you would recommend? And truthfully, no, any of these would work. Each section I described some of the positives and some of the negatives, if there were any, for these plants, so bear those in mind. But I mean, a Syngonium is a Syngonium is a Syngonium. It's generally, at least it has been in my experience, and I agree with the rest of the world, generally relatively forgiving, relatively easy care, basically. And I still managed to kill a few Syngoniums, as I said, like, ain't no hiding on this channel. And for the people that are just starting off and they're just like, oh, but I've killed so many plants. We know, we all have. I still do, on a frequent basis. But that's how you learn. Also, that's also potentially the point where you're just like, do I want to try again, or do I just not bother with that plant and I'll move on to something else? Because in all fairness, I ain't got that much space. So yes, but do let me know, did I miss your favorite from this video? Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? Let me know down below, and let's all have that conversation. I know, as I said, Syngoniums, we don't talk about them enough, and it's a shame because they are so super easy, at least in my experience, kind of almost at pothos level, I find. So yeah, let's have that conversation in the comments down below, but hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.